and welcome to the Cloud Computing Workshop. My name is Gaurav Malik. I'm a senior lecturer in computer science in the School of Architecture, Computing and Engineering at the University of East London. I'm a certified instructor for the ICEP certificate in Green IT. I'm also CompTIA Cloud Essentials certified. The purpose of this workshop is to introduce you to cloud computing. We're going to discuss the risk, the threats and security in cloud-based solutions. We're looking at how you can get the best out of the cloud. We look at how you can use the cloud to empower your users and customers. We're going to also take a brief look at the first steps you can take in cloud computing deployment and also how you can start saving up today for a rainy day afterwards. Over the last few years, we've seen a growth in the use of cloud computing, in the use of open APIs, in the use of storage, and in the present day, almost every company is using cloud computing in one form or the other, even if they're not aware of it. So what is the cloud? Now, thankfully, there are a few fundamental definitions which we can use to define the cloud. First of all, cloud is something where you have services which are outside your infrastructure. Cloud are services that are more often than not delivered over the internet. Cloud are services where you have a different licensing model that you may have when you take a look at traditional software. And cloud are services that are accessible, as we said, over the internet, in some cases through a web browser of one type or the other. Okay. Now, one of the other tenet or fundamentals of cloud computing is it gives us elastic capacity. So as I said before, you do not invest in infrastructure. You buy infrastructure as and when you need it. And this key thing about scalability is what has made cloud computing very exciting for us. Now, cloud computing can be categorized into three different areas. The first of them is software as a service. Second one is platform as a service. And the third one is infrastructure as a service. We're going to spend a few minutes discussing what these different forms of cloud computing are. Let's start by looking at software as a service. The advantage of software as a service is it does not require bespoke infrastructure. It has reduced system administrator loading, there's no upfront software costs, and users are supported by an organization that knows the product and also knows how to make it work very well. In some cases, there might be some setup costs involved, but this again can be outlaid against future deployment. Software as a service is something that makes it quite useful for small organizations. It allows you to leverage infrastructure which could be used by large companies. If, for example, things like Salesforce.com, Google Apps. So these are used by companies which might be one or two people in strength to large Fortune 500 companies. And software as a service is one of the key selling points, or has been one of the key selling points in the rise and the popularity of cloud computing. The most popular use of software as a service has been in things like email, in things like storage, in things like accounting, in things like editing of files online. And one of the things that we're seeing nowadays is that a large number of companies which had traditionally deployed software on the desktop are moving to deploy software on the cloud. The two biggest companies we've seen making this move is Microsoft through the use of Office 365 and Adobe through their Creative Cloud. One of the key things about software as a service is it allows you to try out software without paying subscription charges or license fees upfront. Now, if you're a small company where you might only have one or two people using a certain software, you only pay for those two people to use that particular software, and you don't have to pay for your entire organization to have the software installed on the machines, even though they might not be using half the features of the software or that software at all. So we are able to use the pay-as-you-go or the licensing model software as a service to ensure that the right people have access to the software that they need to make themselves into productive workers. Platform as a service is a service which is primarily used by developers. Over the last few months, we have seen many companies like Twitter, Instagram starting to open up the APIs for use by developers. Now, what it allows developers to do is to be able to tap into the features of these web-based services and to use them within their own applications. The other use of platform as a service has been through the use of Google App Engine, Amazon Web Services, Salesforce. Again, companies who have open APIs, and developers can use these APIs to try and add either new features to their own web products or to use these services to basically create new products. So this is quite exciting as far as developing a new product is concerned or delivering a new web service is concerned. We're going to be looking at infrastructure as a service. Now, infrastructure as a service is effectively you not having your own servers, but trying to rent servers on demand from a third party. The third party could be Microsoft's Windows Azure. The third party could be Amazon EC2, and quite a few different companies who are using the services of Amazon, Microsoft to try and resell their own services as well. And we're seeing quite a few new entrants into this market as well. So infrastructure as a service kind of taps into one of the characteristics of cloud computing, which is scalability, which is what we spoke about before. Infrastructure as a service is usually built on a utility basis. So one of the advantages that you have is if you're a company and you want to try and experiment how your software application will run on 10, 20, 30, 40 PCs, you're able to try and use this on pay for an hour's use of 40 computers rather than go down to a shop and buy 40 computers. So this is how we can see the use of infrastructure as a service also for the purpose of licensing. Now, while you are able to access your infrastructure over the internet, normally you'll try and do it using a remote desktop client like Microsoft Remote Desktop Client, to be able to access the servers in the cloud. You have the ability to create your own private cloud, especially if you're running software which might be useful only to yourself. You also have the ability to have your infrastructure spread across different geographical areas. So you may choose to have a server running in Europe, and you might want to have a redundant server running in Western Europe and in Central Europe. The idea of infrastructure service is that rather than, again, making the physical investment, you're trying to tap into the features of your cloud computing provider and use their infrastructure rather than your own.